And welcome back to our fourth instalment in our Christmas special. So today I'm going to be cooking you the most amazing duck in the wood-fired oven and making the most spectacular gravy from the juices and etc. like that. So grab yourself a drink, mulled wine, whatever you fancy, sit down and enjoy the video. So let's get down to the ingredients to prepare the first part of this duck cook. So you're going to need a clementine cut in half. You're going to need 6 or 7 bay leaves whole. You're going to need 2 or 3, depending on how healthy your teaspoons are, of Chinese mixed spice. Then you're going to need a red onion and 2 or 3 carrots, depending on the size. You need to have something like that. And of course, your duck. So this is a beautiful free range 2 kilo duck that's been supplied to us by the guys down at Hyde Orchard Farms. If you're in the local Surrey area of Hindhead, Haslemere, do check them out. They've got an Instagram page. We'll put a link into the description down below. Anyway, so to get on with preparing this duck, what we need to do is first off get the salt and pepper and give our duck a really good season up. Make sure we get everywhere with the salt and everywhere with the pepper. We want a good coating on that. Remember, this is duck is quite fatty, so a lot of this is going to render out. So we want that pepper to be on the surface and then renders out and then renders through. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab some of these bay leaves and we're going to shove some of them inside the cavity along with our clementine. And this is just going to ooze that Christmas flavour out. So just shove it in there and then a couple more bay leaves at the end. The next trick is we're just going to sprinkle our Chinese allspice all over the surface and get that flavour. Now, duck, and this goes amazingly. If you've ever eaten in a Chinese restaurant, it's that familiar flavour that goes very, very well with duck. Duck is very oily and greasy, so it needs something a little bit sort of astringent to cut through it. So let's make sure we rub that all over, get it all over the duck. As I say, we've not added any oil whatsoever. This is going to create its own bath of oil and beautiful ducky goodness. So the next trick we need to do is, because this pan is going to collect all of the juices, and it's very, very important that we cook it in a pan that's, you know, suitable for barbecue or oven or whatever, is to collect all of those juices. Because what we're going to do is we're going to grab these vegetables and place them underneath of it. It's going to create a sort of trivet. It's also going to cook. Now, why are we cooking the vegetables? Because this juices that will be saved into this pan will be used to make the most amazing gravy that goes with this duck once it is cooked. So we'll mash all this all up, but it just lifts that duck up and it creates a sort of a trivet there. So I'm now going to get this into the oven. You need to have the oven up to about the 180 degrees centigrade mark, and you need to leave this in there for a good hour and 40 minutes. I would check on it. You do need to just check on it sort of once you're an hour in, just to make sure, but at that 180 degrees you should be there for about 1 hour 40 and away you go. So I'm going to get this into the oven now and I'll bring you back once we're done. So it's been about an hour and 15. I've pulled the duck out. We're now just going to give it a quick liberal spritz of our apple cider vinegar, more just to moisten it down. We don't need to put any more oil or fat on it. Gosh, you can see that's hot with the steam that's coming off of that. Wow, so we just want to give that a spritz down and then we'll put it back in for about another 40 minutes to an hour. But just keep an eye on it and we want to make sure that we get that duck perfectly cooked. It's already going brown, it's looking lovely. The smell coming off it is amazing. So let's get this back into the oven and I'll bring you back once we're done. So it's been about 45 minutes and this duck is now done. It is done to perfection. The skin's all beautifully crispy, exactly as we want it. You can feel the flesh underneath is really soft and tender. So now what we need to do is get this duck out, and I've just got my carving fork and my carving knife here. We want to drain out all of the juices from inside of it, and we now want to take that and put that on a board and let that rest for a little while. So that duck is not ready to be eaten just yet. We've got to let it rest, let those juices retract back into the meat, as we all know and love about that. Now what I'm going to do is I'll bring you in for a close-up first of all of the duck so you can see what it looks like in the finished thing. So now what we need to do is get a soup spoon or a serving spoon or some sort of flat, you know, a spoon that's got a bit of a bulge on it. And we want to start mashing up all those vegetables that are beautifully cooked. We're going to smash them all up and mash them in, and we also want to add about 2 tablespoons of flour and mix that in, get all of those yummy juices off the bottom of that pan, and away we go. What we're now going to do is heat this up and reduce it down on the stove. I have got a gas stove, admittedly, just to do this because it speeds things up. So we're just going to flick this flour in. Don't worry about the flour giving it that sort of floury taste. It's going to help thicken that sauce. And we've got a few more ingredients to bring in. So now that I've mashed those all up and they're in the pan, what we'll do is I'll bring you in and I'll show you how we now make the gravy. So now we've got the gas stove out. It's just a bit easier up here to do this than do it over coals, and also I can film this properly for you so you can see it in depth. So what we need to do is we get our gas stove lit. We want to bring this up to a sort of a medium, and we want to boil it to start off with. Now the first thing you need to do is get yourself a good dessert wine and give it a good glug of that in there, because that's going to add some flavours and it's going to give it that wine base. A little bit of sweetness as well, which will help. So if we get that in there, start getting that to simmer. It's already starting to bubble, I can hear it. These gas stoves are really, really good for this sort of behaviour, this sort of activity. It really does help. You could do it over the coals if you wanted, but for the sake of this video, I'm doing it. Now, what I've got here is a Knorr chicken stock cube in some boiling water. Now, it's important to put boiling water in there, because if you put cold water in there, it's then got to come to the boil. What we want to do is pour that in, and we want to stir it round and make sure all of those yummy juices and bits and stuff are all pulled off the bottom. Now, what we need to do is keep stirring this, and we also need to bring it to the boil. So we want to boil it for a few minutes, and then we want to start reducing this down so it becomes that thick, luscious, beautiful gravy. And that's why it's a good idea when you get your stock and it's not the powdered stuff and it's in a liquid form, is to use boiling water, because it takes a little less time for it to come up to boil. So I'll bring you back once this has started to boil and we'll go through some more of the process. So I had this on a fast boil, so maximum heat, for about 15 to 20 minutes. Once I'd had it at that sort of temperature for a while, I then dropped it down to a simmer, so it was just bubbling gently, and it's been sat like that for another 15-20 minutes. I'll bring you in for a close-up now, and you can see that this is really started to reduce down. It's really lovely, thick and lush and glossy and shiny, and it's really beautiful. So this is about the right time now to get it off the heat and then get it into a jug, so you can serve this up with a duck. Right, so the main thing to get this into a jug, I've just got a nice Pyrex glass jug here. If you've got a fancy gravy boat, you can. The good thing about this gravy is, as well, is you don't have to make it on the day. You could almost do the duck and reheat it. You can make the gravy and then chill it and put it in the fridge and then reheat it again over the saucepan. What we're going to need now is, as I said, a nice jug to put it in. And we'll need a coarse sieve, something that fits quite nicely in there, because we're going to get those big lumps out. We can't serve this gravy with bits of carrot. Not all of it's mushed down, and there's bits of onion in there which haven't dissolved, obviously, completely. So you just need to get yourself either a ladle or a decent spoon that you can ladle this out and then start to filter it through the sieve and get this into a jug, so it's like that. Once you've got enough of the bits in there, you can also use the spoon as well to then push through all of that good yumminess. So I'm going to carry on doing this, and I will bring you back once I've got this all into the jug. So we've got all our beautiful gravy. Oh, that smells amazing. That is going to be absolutely awesome on this duck. What I might have forgotten to mention is have yourself a bowl, because obviously you're going to be straining out those big bits, and you can see the carrots and onions, the remnants are all in that bowl, so it's always a good idea to have that, so you've got something to put them in. You don't want to be fumbling around trying to move rubbish across the kitchen or through the smoke shack or wherever you're cooking this. So that's it. Let's have a little taste of this and see what it actually tastes like. Be careful, because it's going to be hot. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, that's like a soup in itself. That is a meal on its own. It's got all of the flavours of the duck. You can taste some of the spices. You can taste the clementine. You can taste that bay. That is absolutely amazing. Now, as that cools, you will probably find there will be some of the fat will rise to the top, because it always will. And that's a good idea. You can scrape that off if you want to get rid of some of that fattiness out of that gravy, because remember, duck is super, super fatty. Let me bring you in for a close-up, and you can see the beautifulness of this gravy. So that's the gravy done. It's all done. This is a pretty easy and straightforward. I think now it's time to cut into this duck and have a look. It's rested for about half an hour. I've got my trusty carving knife from Flint and Flame here, absolutely blinding knife. Oh my gosh, that knife is going through that. That duck is so tender and it's juicy. Let me bring you in for a close-up and you can have a look at that. So we're carving a slice off of here. We'll get this off. Now you can serve this any which way you wish. You can tear it up, you can slice it. Slicing's probably the most traditional way of having it. If you want, you could shred it. You know, you could have it like the crispy shredded duck that you have. It's not quite as crispy as the Chinese restaurants, but you could do it that way as well. Let's have a little taste of this and see what it tastes like. Oh my goodness. Mmm. It's tender, it's melt in the mouth. Coupling it up with that is going to absolutely make an absolutely amazing Christmas lunch. So, there you go. There's your duck. There's your gravy. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled because we've got one more instalment to come, and that's for dessert, and you will not be disappointed. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.